here. So welcome to our Focus Forum. I'm Rita Riker, President of Focus Greater Syracuse, and so pleased to see so many people here. Today, we're very pleased to welcome a panel of leaders from some of our local funding organizations. They will share information about their organizations, including their funding process and priorities. I will briefly introduce each before they present. More detailed bios can be reached on the Focus website, focussyracuse.org. Let's begin with Meg O'Connell, Executive Director of the Allyn Family Foundation. At Allyn, Meg led the creation of the famous Salt City Market and has now undertaken the redevelopment of the Chimes building across the street. Meg's career has included working in nonprofit fund development, and from 2012 to 13 actually served as interim president of Onondaga Community College. She serves on numerous boards and committees, including most recently the Micron Community Engagement Committee. Meg?
Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone for joining and really appreciate the opportunity to connect today. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview, a little bit of the Allyn Family Foundation. I definitely recommend too that you check out the website. I think that has probably the most relevant and up-to-date information going on. But so the Allyn Family Foundation, as many people might know, has been around for 70 plus years. We were formed in 1954 as a private family foundation that was started by the Allyn family. They were really well known for their medical diagnostic company, Welch Allyn, that was located in the southern end of Onondaga County. The company, at 100 years old in 2015, sold. So they always had a foundation, and but they also did corporate social responsibility with the company Welch Allyn. So people kind of kept thinking it was like the Welch Allyn Foundation. It's but now it's just the Allyn family. They are a group of family members who live both locally but all over the country. When they sold in 2015, they decided that the foundation, they wanted to have a greater impact and think about its work in a different strategic way. So we went about a strategic plan process that over the last 9 years has really evolved into a very focused foundation. I think many of you probably do know about the Salt City Market, but what that just speaks to is that we move from a place of just kind of doing the traditional strategic reactive grant making into a way where we identified it a lot of times based on data, community need, what were the opportunities that in this community where a private foundation that could really make the change and impact that what we felt would be helpful for our community, that would build this idea of community prosperity. So our motto is fostering change, imagining possibilities, creating opportunities, but doing it together. We have really embraced this model that I think if you really want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go with others. So how can we as a community start to come together to address some of the systemic and challenging issues that we have? And then how can the Allyn Foundation play a role? And our role had in the past, I think, just been a reactive grant making process. And we've really changed over time to see our role much more as this idea of trying to build coalitions, convene things, build capacity, but also take on more leadership roles, using the assets of the foundation, not just through grants, but through what we now loan into. We're loaning to different not-for-profits, ways to create some of the projects that we're trying to happen. We've also gotten very narrow in terms of what are our priorities that we really want to address. So again, it's mostly around this economic opportunity and empowerment. You know, if you think about the Salt City Market, how do you take those 10 vendors? How do we take people who want to start businesses, get them access to capital, give them places and spaces to help them be successful? And so I think that that's definitely something that's probably one of the most signature projects we had kind of undertaken on with partners from the county, the city, Center State CEO as other community partners as well. We're doing a lot of work also in vibrant neighborhoods. How do you create a vibrant neighborhood of choice? So we got really involved with starting the not-for-profit Blueprint 15. I have 2 colleagues on my team now who are solely dedicated to supporting that not-for-profit organization, and we are undertaking the construction of a new 74,000 square foot building called the Children Rising Center. So in that case, we are making both a grant capital commitment, but also we are leveraging a lot of leadership on our team to help make that process happen. Also around Vibrant Neighborhoods, we have undertaken the project for the Chimes redevelopment building that we feel really strongly. Again, we tried to find a partner to a local developer who would develop that for us, partly because this southern end of downtown has had so much recent investment, but that building was so, didn't have any projects and was very disinvested. So, and the other two projects that we're working on around early childhood development and also reproductive well-being and women's health. So I realize I think I've gone over my time a little bit. So thank you, and hope that that's been a good overview. Thanks, Rita.
Thank you, Meg. So now I'd like to move on to the CNY Community Foundation and Frank Ridzi. Let me get him spotlighted here. Frank. So Frank is Vice President for Community Investment at the Central New York Community Foundation and Associate Professor of Sociology at Lemoyne College. Frank has helped to launch and lead community initiatives in areas such as increasing community literacy, reducing lead poisoning, and addressing poverty and economic inclusion. His writings have appeared in such places as the Foundation Review, the Journal of Applied Social Sciences, and Review of Policy Research. Frank, you're on.
All right. Thank you, Rita. Great to be here among such great colleagues and partners. And I say that in many ways because we work together so much. We share a lot of ideas and thoughts, and many times we are funding each other's collaborative projects and being at the table with each other, helping to discern the best way forward. And many times, more and more, that is involving more and more nonprofits and community members as well. So the Central New York Community Foundation, what makes us different from the other people here? We're the public charity, which means we are focusing on not only disseminating funds, but also raising money. We're constantly raising money, and in a good year, we might bring in 20 million, but we never spend those dollars. We invest them and we spend the interest. And every year we make grants of about 20 to 25 million only in this community, right? So we are a trust fund for this community, but we're constantly building, and we serve both donors and grant seekers. And so we're always reaching out, trying to help people be philanthropic, help you be strategic. And so as you'll see, I'll profile in a second, we also have our 5 for CNY, and I'm going to share that in a moment right here, just so, well, partly so that it doesn't time out. I'm on a remote there. And so you'll see that we're encouraging people to be philanthropic at the same time as we're disseminating philanthropic dollars. So we are founded in 1927. So we're getting close to our 100th birthday, our centennial in 2027. So that'll be very exciting. I hope to celebrate that with you. But to get to the point of what we really want to talk about is, how can you get funds from us and what are our priorities here? And this is from a brochure that we will hand out if we see you in person. And it really focuses, kind of highlights our priorities. Our programs are designed to support nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit, we're talking to you. You are who we work with. We do work directly with individuals with scholarships, but that's often as well through nonprofits, schools. So we help nonprofits work across from birth of new organizations, to help you launch, also to address community concerns, and also to help you launch ways of addressing new ways of addressing community need, as well as professional development of staff. And you'll see that all through the next page, and certainly collaborative efforts, all to help build the community and move forward. So we have 4 buckets here. You see one on the left, middle, and then right, and then one along the bottom. And I'm not going to go through all of this. It's a lot, but just want you to know that these are the different programs that we fund, and I'll sort of put them in categories. The first on the left here, these grant opportunities are responsive. You come to us, you pitch something. And the most well-known is our community grants, which happen twice a year. We just had one. Our next one is coming up at the end of February. Any nonprofit serving animals, water quality, after-school programs can come to us and tell us about the community need that you have, that we have as a community that you are serving, and apply. We have about $750,000 to $1 million goes out in each of those grant rounds. And then we have a few others that are more specific, the Black Equity and Excellence Fund. And here's where you can start to see some of our priorities. Racial equity is important, but we also serve Cayuga, Cortland. We serve a 5-county area, including Madison County, Oswego. And you can see some of the specific things that we have in this column, as well as our strategic partnerships for groups that want to merge or for Women's Fund. So these are our specific giving. All the way on the right side, we have our professional development. And like many of the partners here, we'll partner with them to help build the capacity of your nonprofit. So we have our leadership classroom. We have our Marcellus work for executive directors and rising staff. We have our nonprofit essential workshop series. And so these are different things that we work, Resilia, Board Strong. These are things that we sometimes partner with other funders here, like Nourishing Tomorrow's Leaders is something that Gifford really leads that we partner with. And Board Strong is something that the United Way takes the lead on. And then in the middle, we have our big priorities that have to do with when one nonprofit is not enough, when you need to all work together. And so you heard Rita mention LeadSafe CNY. That's LeadSafe CNY is an initiative that now has a coalition that many nonprofits are part of. Say Yes to Education, we also run that, and that's scholarships, as you know, for people who are members of the Syracuse City School District who want to go into college afterwards and have that paid for. And then our new loan program, which is impact investing. A lot of nonprofits, some of you here today helped give insight into how you're often struggling to, with cash flow, waiting for state grants, or you need loans in addition to grants. And so that's something that's been big lately. Also, as was mentioned, the Literacy Coalition, OA Childhood Alliance, Work Train, which is job training, and somebody asked in the questions about how do we help with workforce investment. These are all things that we partner with a lot of the funders around also on this call. The Greater Syracuse, this is an example of something also partnered with in the past with, which is, well, actually it's still ongoing, the Alliance for Economic Inclusion, Human Services Leadership Council, STEM, the Youth STEM Funder Collaborative, and participatory grant making is something that you may have heard about, and we can talk about when we get to the questions, but it's people in the community voting on things, on what's the biggest need for the community. And then just to wrap it all up, all of this is based on data. And so we have a bunch of data related efforts. We run the CNY Vitals website, which provides local data, from publicly available sources like the census. We also have the life needs assessment because oftentimes a big critique of publicly available data is it's 2 years old, right? It's 2 years late. So life needs assessment is it's really a crowdsourced project. We have 80 different programs that are collecting basically screening as people come through their programs and sharing those data in anonymous format, real time with each other. Allows for a lot of partnering, a lot of mapping of data, monitoring real time needs. And then we have our community data group that meets every Friday to talk about data in the community, and we're increasingly collecting data from community events. And that's the last thing I'll point out. We've been having a bigger focus on community engagement when we talk to residents. While our grants still have to go to nonprofits, we do seek greater and greater amounts of input on how we do that from community members. And so we'll go to about 20 different community events per summer season, the warm season. We'll have opportunities for people to put their ideas both for community needs, but also community solutions on our idea walls. And that feeds into our grant making process. It feeds into our data collection. People are invited to participate in the life needs assessment at that point as well. And also has helped to inform both our participatory budgeting and our participatory grant making efforts. So that's it for me, about 7 minutes. And I'll hand off back to Rita.
Great. Thanks, Frank. Cool. All right. Now we're going to move on to Sheena, who is Executive Director of the Gifford Foundation. Sheena, prior to assuming her executive director responsibilities, her work at the foundation was focused on expanding its community impact initiatives. She's been instrumental in the design and planning of Nourishing Tomorrow's Leaders, a leadership development training that focuses on increasing the diversity and inclusiveness of nonprofit boards. Sheena also dedicates her time by serving on several local and national boards. She believes in teaching people how to fish concept, and that celebrating diversity is the best way to build and sustain strong, vibrant, and inclusive communities. I must add that Focus celebrated Sheena earlier this week as one of our 2024 Wisdom Keepers. Sheena, you're on.
Thank you so much, Rita, and thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to be here with my philanthropic partners and the work that we all do and collaborate with to make our community a better place for everyone. The Gifford Foundation was started back in 1954. It's a private foundation that focuses on Onondaga, Madison, and Oswego County. Our focus areas are capacity building. We really look at capacity building in the community for our local nonprofits, which are 501c3s, where we look at the whole organization. So we have a concept of meeting organizations where they are. And we take a look and have conversations with organizations about what you need, what you're looking for, and then how we can help and what that looks like. And that help isn't always monetary. That help is sometimes, this might be a better fit for a community foundation, or let me connect you with another organization that's doing the same thing and let's see how we can collaborate. So it's a partnership is how we see it. How to get access to Gifford Foundation funds. You can do that in multiple ways. You can take a look at our website. We have a section called Talk to Gifford, and that is a trigger to reach one of my team members to have a conversation with you about what your needs are and what you're looking for. Right now, we're trying to figure out what our funding priorities are going to be for 2025, but most likely we are still going to do our What If Mini Grant program. We have a mini grant program specifically for residents of the city of Syracuse, where we give up to $5,000 to assist you in doing something positive, impactful in your particular neighborhood. And then we have the Talk to Gifford, where when we have a conversation with you, we try to get a better understanding of which funding makes sense for you when we have that conversation. And we really look at the not so sexy things, right? We do fund programming, but it needs to be programming that aligns with community need. Otherwise, we look at things like, what does your website look like? How can we take a look at that? Have you thought about succession planning, professional development, looking at systems to make sure that you can be the most effective nonprofit organization as possible? Because we find that the more effective nonprofits are, the better our communities can end up being in our communities. I'm trying to think of anything else. We really are just we consider ourselves a grassroots place-based foundation where we're open to having conversations. We consider ourselves a partner in developing relationships with organizations.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Sheena. Moving on to Nan Eaton, who is Executive Director of United Way. She has spent her career working in nonprofit organizations and believes that we do our best work when we do it together. Nan is a graduate of the Leadership Greater Syracuse class of 2000, has received several awards for her leadership work, and serves on numerous local boards. While not a native of CNY, Nan believes that it's a wonderful community and a fantastic place to live. Nan?
Thanks, Rita, and thanks to everybody, you and everyone involved with Focus. It's such an important way to help people in the community learn more and learn what's going on. And it's great to always have a chance to talk and present with valued colleagues. We at United Way, like the Community Foundation, are a public charity. We are the oldest in the room, and I'm probably the oldest on the Zoom. The United Way began here in Syracuse in 1917 and was officially incorporated in 1921 as the Syracuse Community Chest. We have been the place where people can give together when they want to make a difference for folks in this community. One of the things that I love about United Way is that while we are part of a worldwide federation of organizations dedicated to the health and well-being of members of their communities, we are each independent nonprofits, which means that the community here, we have a board of directors that makes the decisions with community members about what the needs are and how United Way can best play a role in this community. I don't know if it's possible to bring up the slides. Are they showing, Rita? There we go. So what we say at United Way, many folks say they want to make a difference. What we say is alone you do what you can, United we do more. And what many people think about United Way, if you go to the next slide, is that we provide funding for human services. So we think about that network of human services. We know that if someone goes to the Samaritan Center because they're hungry, that's the tip of the iceberg. And then there's a lot else going on, and we want to help support that wide range of programs and services that will help people move forward in their lives and achieve their own goals. So I'm sure there are many organizations folks are familiar with. And we partner with organizations in a number of ways. I know each of my colleagues has referenced the way we partner. And I think that's always been true. We are in this community really working together. And since COVID, even more so. So we meet at least monthly as a funder collaborative to really think about what's happening and how can we work together to respond. United Way in this community really thinks about impact in 4 ways. So if you go to the next slide and the one after, we really are focusing our efforts in 4 ways. One is thinking about the health and well-being of everyone in the community, whether that is having access to fresh, healthy foods, access to the opportunity to be with others, so you're not in isolation. We know there's more and more of that happening, and access to safe places to live and healthy places to live. So we fund a number of programs addressing the health and well-being of others, and we're part of a number of coalitions that think about that, including a new partnership as part of Lead Safe CNY Coalition. So that coalition has been around for a couple of years, and when it was time to hire a director and really go to the next level, we were honored to partner with the Community Foundation, the county, and so many others to hire LaToya Jones to join our staff as the director of Lead Safe CNY Coalition. Again, we believe we do the best work when we do it together, and so we're honored to have Lead Safe CNY as one of our coalitions here at United Way. The next way, Alicia, if you go to the next slide, we think about youth. So that really means everything from the first breath a baby takes until they're ready to be an adult, and whether that's going into college or going into some sort of career certification program. We think about every person in the community, and we want every child to be able to live their best life. We were proud to be part of the Early Childhood Alliance when it began. And we were the home of it as it grew to become its own standalone nonprofit, continuing to do incredible work. We also think a lot about literacy and what that means. So we've been the home, again, in partnership of the Literacy Coalition of Onondaga County since it began. Many people, the most tangible outcome of the coalition, people think of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is an amazing program where kids birth to age 5 get a mail every month. It's through the Dolly Parton program, and Onondaga County funds that program. So we're honored to have the one person on the team, Kim Kemp, who does an amazing job of running the program. And we're very committed to kids getting to school ready to be successful. But we know right now less than half of 3rd graders in New York State are reading at grade level, and across our county, it's an issue, and in particular in the city of Syracuse. So one of the ways people in the community can be actively involved in our literacy efforts is through the Book Buddies program. So Book Buddies is a high-impact tutoring program. We partner with the Syracuse City School District. Lori Black, our community education director, runs the program. So we are now in 6 Syracuse elementary schools. Volunteers come in and work with children kindergarten through 3rd grade. What I would say is, if anyone listening is interested, cnybookbuddies.org. It will be your favorite hour of the week. So the kids each go twice a week, and most volunteers volunteer once a week. It's during lunchtime. We don't want to pull kids out of their regular class schedule. The kids have fun, and the data shows they're making progress. That's the most important thing. As much as we want opportunities and we want it to feel good, we want to make sure that it's having an impact, and it is. So we are proud to run Book Buddies, and we also support many programs because we want all young people to reach adulthood and ready to make choices about what they want for their lives. The next way we think about our community, on the next slide, Alicia, is financial security. So we know more and more folks in our community are struggling every single day to make ends meet. No one has to look far to read about it, to see folks out in the community. The reality of it is homelessness has increased 150% in this community since 2021. And for the first time that we know of, there are more people homeless in families than individuals who are homeless. We as a community have always done an amazing job through the Housing and Homeless Coalition to address homelessness, but everything has changed since COVID. So Onondaga County is doing an incredible job to support families, but working families, when rents went up 30 to 40%, they couldn't pay that additional rent and they became homeless. So they're in hotels. And we all know that there's a lack of affordable housing for people who are working. So when we're thinking about that, and for me, it's always important to frame for you, for a family of 4 to be considered living in poverty, that means their income is less than $31,200 a year. So if a family of 4 has an income of $33,000 a year, that is not technically living in poverty. But I know we would all agree there's no way to make ends meet when you're a family of 4 with that kind of income. Folks are working hard. They're not making enough to make ends meet. And that's what we're focusing on. So right now, 14% of people in Onondaga County are living in poverty. Another 25% are those folks living paycheck to paycheck. Taking your blood pressure at the doctor are probably folks living paycheck to paycheck. Working in our early childhood centers and many of our nonprofits, those folks are living paycheck to paycheck. That's what we're talking about when we talk about affordable housing. So we have a number of programs we're doing to really think about financial security and help people improve. One is the Cash Coalition and our Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, another way people can volunteer if you're interested. And then we also have a couple of new programs we're launching. One is Thrive at Work, which is possible through Key Bank Foundation grant. Another is an Alice, which is the Paycheck to Paycheck folks grant through Bank of America. So much focus on financial security, helping people move out of crisis and into hopefully building wealth and achieving their goals. And then the next slide shows you how we think about communities. So we want to make sure our community can deal with crisis, which is certainly disaster, or living in safe spaces, healthy homes, obviously donating blood, becoming involved. And we want everyone to know about the 211 24-hour, 7-day-a-week phone line, which is something we are proud to coordinate for 5 counties in the region. And Contact Community Services does an amazing job of answering those phones. The next slide, quickly, I'll just finish by showing you volunteering, Volunteer CNY. So we say people can give, they can get involved and volunteer, and we do everything through people in the community. So volunteercny.org is a great way to look for opportunities. And I think the last slide probably shows you Book Buddies. So those are some of our volunteers, but we need more. So we've been trying to serve 600 kids means we need more volunteers. And then I think the last slide is just some great folks getting involved in our Day of Caring. But United Way's been here for a long time. We're proud to continue with this community legacy of making a difference for folks across our area.
Thank you, Nan. Great. We're going to now turn to our question and answer. We received several questions from people who are attending today from registrants, and Brian Hoke, Focus Emeritus Board Member, is going to lead us in moderate the question and answer period.
Thanks, Rita. Thanks, Nan, Sheena, Meg, and Frank for being here. Thanks to all of you who are joining us. As Rita mentioned, we had quite a few questions submitted in advance. We'll certainly cover many of those. If you all here in attendance have a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A. We'll try to get to it. We may not. But thanks everybody for being here. Many panelists, many of the questions we received in advance, as you saw, right? We shared the questions with you, were about how to succeed in funding requests. And you all touched on this, the priorities of your respective organizations, some about the process, but I wonder if we might dig in a little more. In particular, one of the questions I thought that phrased it best was Hillary, who asked how to best get feedback after not being funded, how to stand out. I wonder what the process is for those parts of your processes that are reactive, that respond to requests from the community. I wonder if you might each say a little bit about how that works and how folks might structure their request to you all. Anybody like to go first?
Frank.
Yeah, Frank, please.
I had a quicker hands this time, Meg. This happens quite frequently, mostly with the community grants process, which I mentioned happens twice a year, and Black Equity and Excellence, which are the responsive, that first column that I shared, less so with our initiatives because that's often collaborative and our participatory grant making, people are voting in that sense. With us, we try to follow up with everybody who wants to have a discussion. So we offer that opportunity to have a conversation with our staff. Quite candidly, oftentimes a reason is that we ran out of money. If we had more money, we would have, and that's one reason we are constantly raising more money, is to build that endowment because we spend around 5% of the endowment. And so while I mentioned that we spend around 20 million to 25 million, a lot of that is us, the part of our mission, which is helping people be philanthropic. It's donor advised funds and other things and scholarships and other things. And so we really only have about $4 million that is discretionary, and about 2 million are the initiatives that I mentioned, and 2 million is the responsive grants. And so we do take it very seriously to provide that feedback, that even though it's limited resources, oftentimes there are still groups that are funded. And for us, it's a bit more complex than perhaps some of the other funders here, is because we have not just one family's legacy or one one pot of money, but we have about 60 different pots of funds that are somewhat discretionary but a field of interest. And so that might be a fund, for instance, there is one that is for working dogs and water quality, either one. So if you fit into one of those, it's more like, and it's a good project, then you're really competing with others who are also eligible for those funds. So there's a complex matching process that goes on behind the scenes. And so we often will share what made some more competitive than others, and we want to give you that feedback. But also sometimes it's really the luck of the draw, what funds were still available and what we could match you with. And
how many folks are vying for a particularly somewhat directed sort of pot of money?
Yeah, and that really speaks to our business model, which is we help you be charitable for eternity, or as long as this society lasts, which is hopefully a long time. And so if you have passions, we honor those and we match, and we tell you what funds those came out of, and what and if you want, you can learn more about the donor and their legacy and what made them want to give to animals or give to after school programs.
And Frank, those conversations can happen, it sounds like, from what you're saying, both at the front end, somebody who's just thinking about applying for and asking for contribution to a cause, or afterwards to say, hey, this is why you did. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. And we have strongly encouraged, and we may be moving toward, being stronger than strongly encouraging people to meet with us, because we don't want to waste your time. And so we want you to meet with us before you apply. And we have a sense at that point, what kinds of money we have remaining, because candidly, we've seen the applications quadruple per year in the last few years. There's just a lot of need out there. And so right now we're maybe able to fund 17% of the requests. So it's very competitive. And, we want to be just candid with you, from the get-go.
Gotcha. Thanks, Frank. Meg, I believe you, ma'am, we're up next.
Oh, no, I was just telling Frank should go first.
Oh.
So
You
mostly
wanted-
because I do think they have such a great process, and I think they do such a really good job. Anytime, a lot of times, if it's a new not-for-profit or someone who's just seeking funds, like I direct them to the Central New York Community Foundation, because I think that that's really a great place for them to understand things. The Allyn Foundation we don't have an online application. We have just a rolling, you send in a one-pager with what you're looking for. And then because we really focus, like I mentioned, in some of those really key strategic areas, if it aligns with the work that we're doing in that area, then we will fund it. But a lot of times we don't have a lot of unrestricted assets just because of the nature of how we're now thinking and doing the work. So I know it's hard, and it's hard for not-for-profits who are doing really great work because there's not a lot of philanthropy in Central New York, and that's always been a challenge.
Mhm.
I came from the not-for-profit community. I totally get that. So I don't, it's something that as a community, we are trying to kind of figure out, how do we make things more available? Especially, we do a lot with startup and organizations that are really working in the community. But I guess I also say to people, like, just understand in the United States, like, philanthropy, that's organized like we are, is only a small percentage a lot of times. It's really trying to figure out who your donors are and trying to get people behind your mission that can give to you. And I know that's really hard for a lot of organizations to start to tap into, but that is really where the majority of charitable giving is done in the United States.
Interesting.
Yes, so Brian, I'll just piggyback to add.
Yeah,
So
please.
we too get far more in requests than we have to give out. And our process is we do it in a number of ways. So one is that we have, as I said, the impact areas. So we really want organizations to know these are the things. So unlike the Community Foundation, which really sponsors and funds so many kinds of things, we will focus on people and that human services network. And that's really what we think about all the time. So whether it's the senior citizen whose Social Security isn't able to cover all their expenses, which we've seen increase dramatically, to that whole range of needs. So typically what we'll do, and our donors really sort of think of us as the organization that does the homework for them. That's what many say. So we first look at the financials of organizations for most of our funding, so that we know they have good audits and they have the experience to do the work. And then we have application. In the past, we've pretty much looked at a 3-year commitment so that organizations could count on that funding. This year, as you saw, we're funding 34 agencies, over 70 different programs. And we're really, other than government, the only organization mostly that can provide annual ongoing support for programs, which people count on us to do. We've also added a way for smaller, newer organizations really meeting specific types of needs, or people led by people of color serving specific populations, to get one-time grants from us. We do that once a year. And that's a much more flexible way of looking at it. We've given that for operating dollars, which are harder. It's a much smaller, they're harder to get. Much smaller pot of money. We hope to grow it. And then the other thing we do is fund things like Work Train and 211 and sort of those community collaboratives. The last thing I'll say is we just launched a new way of giving out money called Good for CNY, which was done by our Emerging Leaders Group. So we had a donor donate a $10,000 prize, and any nonprofit could submit a project that was serving kids, and it was focused on either literacy or STEM. So 5 organizations were chosen to give a live pitch, and then one of them, Hope Print, was selected for their project. But it was a great process, and we plan on doing that every year as well.
That's great. And you must spend a not insignificant time, much like Frank, right, of securing money, right? I mean, your money comes in. I mean, that must be, and you have, I mean, there's value to that, right? That money goes back to the community, but that must not be a small amount of time and effort from your organization, right?
Without a doubt. And, people used to think of United Way. Many became United Way donors in their workplace.
Sure.
And I will tell you that 90% of Wegmans employees donate to United Way.
Wow, that's great.
I've heard cashiers have said to me, I give $10 a paycheck because my sister got help.
Yeah.
So it's very inspiring. But you know, our economic landscape has changed. Companies have changed, right? So
Yeah.
we partner with companies a lot of ways. There are companies who want to sponsor specific things. There are companies that want their employees to know about the kinds of services we fund,
Mhm.
because you know, these are for all of us, right?
Right.
We all have mental health issues in folks we know or care about, or we all have people who learn their child has a disability. I mean, that spectrum of services really is a wide array, and that's what we focus on. So more and more, and we too have an endowment, and we certainly look to the donors who want to sort of make sure this community is healthy and thriving forever, just as the Community Foundation does. We think of that in the same way. But raising money is harder than ever, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's more need than ever. So
Gotcha. Well, thank you. And Sheena, I know you mentioned in your comments, and I know from knowing of your fine organization that there are, small grants to small grassroots efforts and larger and mentoring. But I wonder if you might comment on how causes approach Gifford and try to secure funding from you, if I may.
So there's a couple of things that I want to add. So one, Gifford doesn't have deadlines either.
Okay.
When you do the talk to Gifford, it just creates a conversation, and then we go from there on whether it's a good match for Gifford or how we can provide you with another type of resource, possibly, right? Because our only benefit is not just monetary, right?
Gotcha.
Another thing I would like to add to the conversation is that a no is not personal, right? It's not personal. We all have budgets. We all have priorities, and we all have areas, specific areas, geographical areas that we fund, right? So we have these structures in place. So a no might not be because it was a bad request. It could be because we have run out of funds for that year, because we do all have budgets. Gifford lives off the stock market. We don't have donors. So if the stock market does well, I can put more money in my budget. And if it doesn't, then we have less funds to give out to the community, right? So I think that that's important to understand. I think another thing that's important to understand is the difference between charity and philanthropy. I think that people get that a little confused sometimes, that where philanthropy is an investment, right? It's not meant to be an ATM. It's not meant to sustain organizations or programs. But what we can do is have conversations with you on how you can sustain your organizations and programs, and what does that investment look like for us to assist you from getting from point A to point B. So I think that that's important to know as well, that philanthropy does not have enough funds to solve every problem that we have, right? The needs in our community way exceeds all of our budgets. Even if we put all of our money together, and if we all sunset tomorrow, we still wouldn't have enough funds to support all the need that's in the community. But what we can be is a really great partner, and also provide you with access and resources to other sources like what's at the Onondaga County Library, where they have a whole system that you can go in and specifically put in information on what you need funding for, and you can reach out to national funders. So I really think that the key here is relationships, knowing your local funders, what we're looking for, but also us listening to you on what your needs are, so that we know grant making, and when we all come together and have a conversation, what should we collaborate more on to help the needs in the community?
Gotcha. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Nan, I think you wanted to come back in, right?
Brian,
Please.
just one quick thing. You know, I think many people think of, money. Organizations need money, and they certainly do. They also need people power. And so I would love for folks to think about your talent, your ability, your expertise, and how you can share that. So organizations list opportunities on volunteercny.org. And there's a huge value. Many of our nonprofits wouldn't be able to continue operating without nonprofit. I mean, the Samaritan Center has a tiny, mighty team, and it serves 2 meals a day, 365 days a year, because they have so many incredibly dedicated volunteers. So that's another really important way people can make a difference. And many nonprofit organizations are also in need of volunteers. So I would encourage folks to explore those possibilities as well.
Gotcha. we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to get to at least one more question. Bob had asked about how it is that your organizations collaborate with or work in partnership with the city and county. And I'll skew that question a little bit to ask you to elaborate on something I think each of you talked about, is how you work with each other, right? I imagine as a layperson, it's cutthroat, right? Each foundation and United Way are out to just get their own at the expense of the others. And, I'm kidding, of course, but it sounds like it's a very collaborative process. I wonder if you might each talk about how it is you work with the public sector and how it is you work with each other a little more than you have. If we could go through and maybe spend a minute or two on that before we close. Nan, do you want to start this one if you would?
Yeah, thanks. What I would say to you is we are fortunate in this community that we work with the public sector all the time. I mean, when we have our funder collaborative conversations, the county and city are there. I mean, they are part of all of our conversations in terms of how we're thinking about need, keeping track, because I think we are all focused on maximizing the impact we can have and really thinking about what resources are available to address all of the specific kinds of needs folks have. So I think we are very fortunate to have strong listening leadership and that are very committed to partnering with all of us. And really, government has to lead. They have far more resources than we do. Many folks may remember Greater Syracuse Hope, which was the anti-poverty grant. United Way was proud to be the financial home, but that was a true collaborative of all community stakeholders and absolutely public sector. So I mean, we're very fortunate in this community.
Great, thank you. Sheena, may I turn to you next, please?
Sure, if I could find the mute button, Brian, sorry. So I just wanted to reiterate what Nancy stated, that the county is the largest local funder, actually. It's not philanthropy, it's the county. And the county provides us with a ton of really great data as well, like what the trends are, what's happening in our communities. And I think that they use philanthropy in our community to really take a look at innovative ways to solve some of the issues that come down the pipeline, because philanthropy has a little bit more flexibility than the county would have or what the city would have because they're a municipality. So us coming together, partnering around some of these issues, some of it isn't always partnering, but some of it is that listening leadership that Nancy mentioned, that we're just listening and learning so that we can do our jobs better, so that we can answer to some of the demands that come out of the community. But a lot of times is you don't know what you don't know. So if we don't have conversations with each other, then we'd all be operating in a silo, and we try really hard not to do that.
Gotcha. Thank you. Meg, you're next in my Brady Bunch view, if I may turn to you.
No, I would just echo what Nan and Sheena say. I do think that for a long time, there wasn't as much collaboration, I would say, between funding organizations in the city and the county. But over the last few years, and I think it's just as Sheena said, it's a good example of philanthropy. How do you pilot something different? And then try and get it so that, if you can show and demonstrate that it has impact and the data is really strong, then usually we have really great partners at the county that are innovative and do want to do things differently.
That's great. That's good to hear as a county citizen. And Frank, last word to you, sir, if I may.
Sure. Yeah, I just emphasize how important it is that the city and county work together so well, because a lot of the problems that we have, you really can't get solutions in place unless those two entities are working well together. And I believe earlier one of the other panelists said, we meet as a group of funders. I think Nan mentioned that every month. The county and city are part of that, so they're there. We're talking through these, so we partner with them on the front end. And as Sheena said, data. So I would say, echo the other presenters, that they're partners both with identifying needs, then figuring out solutions and implementing, and then the long-term sustainability plan. And so we mentioned CNY Vitals as a website. A lot of that is public data, but we have also had to enter into contracts with state government and local government to get data that are actionable, oftentimes that are just too up in the sky, and you don't really have precise enough data to act. And so working with groups like the county health department to provide lead data by neighborhood, working with the city school district in the city to provide third grade reading scores, for instance, by neighborhood, that just enables us to be a whole lot more precise with our limited resources and to pilot things. Then when it gets into trying things, they're at the table with many of these collaborations. I think most of them on our brochure, whether they're led by Allyn or they're led by Gifford or United Way, we're all at the table, and they're there helping to figure out solutions and even to test them. Some of the things that we've done, we've researched and we've even published in academic journals the results. Oftentimes the county was there at the table saying, oh, what about this? What about that? And so there was a real partnership there. And that then falls through to the sustainability plan. Sometimes the sustainability plan is a city ordinance that has been passed. Other times it's, as Nan mentioned with Imagination Library, that's a project. We're all involved. We've scaled it up from one quadrant to half the city, to the whole city, to the county. And that's sort of, if you think of venture philanthropy or venture capital, you want to build something and sell it. In some sense here, as Sheena and Meg were saying, we help to pilot new things. And then if we find that it works, hand it off to the county. And so the county has been funding Imagination Library. So that's sort of the venture exit, if you think of it in terms of sort of capital investment terms. So partners all the way through. We couldn't do what we do without them. And I think they'd say the same thing. We have flexible dollars that can do things that they can't do. Oftentimes when you're looking at the state and federal regulations, we have flexible dollars that can help them pilot new things and look at things in new ways. So great partners.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get to more of the questions, but I appreciate very much all of you being here and all of the work you do. Rita, I'll turn it back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Meg, Nan, Sheena, and Frank. What a great forum this has been, and very informative. Appreciate all your willingness to share and provide all this information. And of course, Brian, thank you for the moderation of the Q&A. Really appreciate that. So, as with all of the rest of our forums, this will be in the next few days. It will be posted on our website for anyone to view. If you have somebody you think would benefit from this. We do have people who come and watch these things. I think we have maybe 40 videos now. We've got quite a few. Just want everybody to know that that's available to them. Also on our website is a donate button. So if anybody of any of our attendees would like to contribute to Focus and allow us to do these kinds of programs, we'd very much appreciate it. Thanks again. Have a great weekend, and go forth and be philanthropic. Take care.